Okay. So today we're going to start the new parak. Well, actually, the name of the parak is called Base Core. They dropped the first. It's like Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Leima. They dropped that from the Pasha. So it's called Base Core. Okay, so thank Hashem that they're able to learn Torah every day. Because of our learning, we should have the base Migdash immediately. We're learning the Lenishma, Savagolda Basbar Binyamin, and the Salas of the Mitzian. And for the first name of Abba David Ben Sarah, the Dali gets a little yes, Ben Fagin Sapira. Okay. Let's see if we're recording. Yeah. It says like this. If someone says to his friend, base core Afrani Meichela, I want to sell you a base core. So, how big is a base core? Base core, a core is 30 sa. And each sa is 144 eggs. Or 6 kav. Very good. So 6 kav. A kav is 24 eggs, so it's 6 times 24 would be 144. So it's quite a large area. Just to give you the measurement of this. So one sa, sa is really a volume, but one sa are actually a base sasayim, an area of 2 sa is a 50 by 100 amas, similar to the Mishkan. The Mishkan was a rectangle, 50 by 100, that was 2 sa. So here we're going 15 times that. We're going up to 30, right? 2 times 15. So he's selling him this property. Now, let's say in the property there was these like ditches, cracks in the land that was 10 tefachim deep. 10 tefachim is not so deep. I mean, I don't want to fall into it, but in a big property, it's 40 inches, 35 inches, something. I mean, it's like from the table to the floor. Yeah, 10 tefachim could already cause death. Yeah, that's a good point. Or if it's a rock that's high 10 tefachim, it's not sold together with that. So what we're talking about now is that he's selling him a property and a certain area of property. So he's supposed to be getting what he's what he bought, what the guy was selling him. And here it turns out, well, the Rashbam points out that he says base core afar. And the word afar, the significance of that is that it has to be fit for plowing. Wow. Not just land to plant houses, to build houses. It has to be to plant grain. Should have topsoil. So over here it's a rock. You can't plant in that. Or if this is a ditch, which would be very hard to plant in. So
what if it's a marsh? Wetland.
Yeah, so you would have to say. Here we're talking about where the person has to say what he's selling him, right? Now, if it's under 10 tefachim, it sounds like it's sold together with it. Pachas mikan, if it's less than that, nimdadim, it's sold together with the field. The person is going to have to accept. It's 9 tefachim. The person's going to have to accept it. We're going to see in the Gemara to what extent. You see, we're only talking about height. The contrast here is how high it is or how low it is. But what about if it's very, very wide, even though it doesn't have the required height or depth? The Gemara is going to mention that. Okay. So Nifi says base core offer, approximately a base core offer. Then I feel like I'm the kaim amukim yesim asar tvachim esam goyim yesim asar tvachim reelon nimdadamima. Yeah, if he adjusted it a drop, he says approximately. He says like this amount. Then that means he's accepting his defects, these blemishes in the property. It's going to be part of the sale. Okay. Gemara says like this. Tanan Hassam. By the way, we're dealing with 75,000 square amas. Because 100 by 50.
17,280. 17,280.
Oh, in meters, it's, what is it?
It's between, I guess between 17,280 and 24,000.
It's possibly 24,900 square meters, but anyway, which would be 75,000 feet. But 75,000 amas.
It's a big disparity.
An amma is 1.5, or no. So 1 second. So I'm making a mistake here. 5,000. 100 by 50 would be the Mishkan. Would be 5,000. Times that by 15 would be 75, right? 15 times 5 would be 75. 75,000. I'm not sure. So the meters would be 20. You have to. Oh, I'm thinking in feet. I'm mixing the feet with amas. If every amma is 1.5, and it's much larger than that, and it's going to be I have to add 30, 30, 35, 37 to that.
Double.
Or you can double it. It'd be 150,000. That's not what you're telling me from the Quran. You're telling me a different number there.
Just meters.
Okay. Tanan Hassam, we learned over there in the Mishnah. Where's over there? In Erechin, it looks like.
25.
Yeah, 25. Erechin, 25. You remember that? No. You went there.
I remember, yeah.
Hamakdish Sadeu B'Shasa Yoifel. If someone consecrates his field, and we're talking about during the time when the Yoifel is around, which would mean that he's able to redeem it. They're talking about a steyachuza, an inheritance field. So the Rashbam says we're not talking about on the Yovel year itself. We're talking about right immediately after the Yovel. So the way it works is Naisin Lai Labeis Zera Chaimer Sairim Chamishim Shekel Keser. Beis Zera Chaimer Sairim is actually a base core, exactly the area that we're talking about. Every base core is going to be 50 silver coins, and it doesn't have to do with the value of the property. It doesn't have to do with the location where it is. It's a gzeres hakasef. That how is the redemption for this property? The redemption is done based on every base core. Every base core is 50 coins. I think how is it worked out that it's really 49 coins plus a pundian, which is 48, which is 148. So it's together, it adds up to 50. Okay. Let's say in the property is exactly the problem that we're dealing with, where there's these ditches in the property. Are we going to consider these ditches, these cracks in the property, or these rocks that are above the property as part of the property? If they're 10 tfachim high or 10 tfachim low, so then ein nimna demima. It's not measured together with it. Pachis mikan, if it's less than that. So nimda demima. It is measured with it. So everything is perfect, right? It's exactly the same. But the Gemara has a problem. It says, why don't we say that they become consecrated on their own? Why don't we just say that this area itself should be consecrated? Because he consecrated the whole field. So let it be like he consecrated 2 fields. He consecrated this and he consecrated that.
But he would have to do another act.
No, he did it in one shot.
He consecrated the whole field. He's consecrated this area.
Before we learned that these things aren't part of the field.
That's what he bought it for.
Depends how he words it. He says more or less.
It is consecrated, right? It's just not measured.
Yeah, the Gemara's thinking right now though that it's not consecrated either.
Okay.
Yeah. Miley Kacha, let it be consecrated on its own. So the Gemara says, maybe the rule is the rule that we never heard of before, but anything smaller than a base core can never be consecrated. Maybe that's the rule.
It says large enough to plant. This is the grub you can plant on.
That's right. Right. Maybe you can't consecrate it. Well, Tanya, it says if that's the case, then it says Sada, the Brisa quotes the pasuk. Pasuk says, what's the original pasuk? It says, Imgol Yigal es hasada hamakdish say. If the one that consecrated the field comes to redeem it. So it says in the pasuk, it says the word field. Sada, field, matamalaymer. Why does it have to add the word field? Because we already said that if it's going to be a base core, then you're going to redeem it for 50 silver coins. Ainly would only know that if you actually consecrate a full field of a saw of a base core. How do you know if you consecrate half of a saw, which is 15, half of a base core? I mean, which is 15 saw instead of 30, or a chatzi lesach. That sounds like 7.5. Or saw, or just if he consecrates one saw. Or tarkev. Tarkev is 3 kav. The chatzi tarkev, or 1.5 kav. Talmud Leimer Sada, Mikol Makim, the pasuk says Sada. Pasuk says Sada. You getting what?
Sure.
Oh. The pasuk says a Sada, which means that it does become consecrated. So you can't tell me that it doesn't become consecrated because of its size, because I have a pasuk that says that adds the word Sada in, which means any size field is going to be consecrated. So Amar Rav Bar Chama says, I think this is what Hill was mentioning also. He says, because this is dealing with these ditches are filled with water. So maybe it's a rock which is not fit for plowing, or maybe it's a ditch in the ground which is filled with water, which you can't plow, which you can't sow seed and grain in there. Grow rice, and you can't grow wheat, and right. And so, if that's the case, then it doesn't get redeemed the same way as the other one gets redeemed.
So the 50 shekel for a base core, that's divisible by the actual size.
Yeah. That would be divisible by the size, but it needs to be a field that's fit for sowing.
So it's figuring out now how much it would be.
Yeah.
How much
So
land it is there for the redemption price.
Yeah. So what we're saying now is that these holes are not part of the redemption price, but they do get consecrated. Is that how it's written over there? That they are consecrated? It's just that they don't get redeemed with the same in the same way.
And you consecrate a hole. There's nothing, I'm not saying when it's filled with water, that just a hole or crevice has nothing in it. How do you consecrate nothing?
Consecrating the ground.
But there's no ground.
Yes, there is.
on the bottom of the crevice is ground.
There's
Inside
no
the
problem
tree.
with it. So it's just theoretical question.
Like the sign is asking, how do you consecrate a hole? If there's nothing there, how do you consecrate it? So, but that's the how in Chelm they bought the bagel holes. Remember they couldn't find them afterwards. Yeah.
At the bottom, if it's flat bottom, because there are places like a sinkhole.
Yeah.
Where the sides fell in, but there is grass, there's dirt down there.
Right.
That counts. That
So we're saying
Because
we're
they
saying
can't-
that
Yeah,
that would
it's
count.
just-
That would count
would count.
if you could plow in there. But here, because it's filled with water, so then it doesn't count. So is it? Does it saying that it really is consecrated? From the Rashbam, I understood that it's consecrated. It's just not redeemed the same way. See on the top Rashbam. The Tanan, the Makdash says the Hektish Kulan, Afilu Bar V'Gas Kolshkim L'Koyim Islam. The top Rashbam says, of course, it's consecrated.
It would have a different rate.
Yeah, has a different rate. It's going to be according to its value instead of the special halacha of redeeming a base core for a 50 coins. That's only by a inheritance field that's been consecrated, and it has to be able to be sown, that type of field. Yeah. Okay. The Gemara now says it's filled with water. Dekanami, I'll prove it to you. Diktani, because it says in that Mishnah, it says Dumya de slime, that it's similar to the rocks. Just like by the rocks, obviously you can't plow in the rock, right? You can't plant in the rock. So too, the one that had the cracks in the ground, also you can't plant in. It must be filled with water. Shema mina.
People have never been to China or Peru.
They-
Where they terrace the rocks. I mean, if there are rocks there, it's like this. You flatten a little bit, soil it, then you plow it. Then you plow the soil.
Right.
Yeah, they have terraces. There's
They're
with
big,
the,
yeah.
up to where the rocks.
Right, so it's the difference in China and Israel, where the rocks themselves, they would put a layer on it. Or it'd be a steep
They have to
slope.
hold the soil in. How do they hold the soil in?
The rocks.
There's a series of big rocks and little rocks to drain it. So that all the steps, even however small, are terraced.
Yeah, that's how they hold it.
So they're chiseling out in the rock,
Yeah, it's just like,
but not but they're
The
leaving the
rocks
wall.
themselves, you still can't.
Uh-huh.
there's no rock showing. That's
Yeah, but
the
here
point.
what we're
It's like
saying
they're
is the
steep
guy
rocks.
is selling it to him.
That's
So
rocks.
as
No,
then,
it
so
would
it's
be-
not considered part of the sale.
Yeah. We would
How do
terrace
we
it.
know?
Yeah.
Why fence? They had to combine fences.
What should he do?
Chop up the rock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
So the guidelines are the same for a stom sale?
Yeah, for a sale,
Yeah, okay,
this is what he's saying. He's supposed to be receiving this amount.
yeah, okay.
So now the Gemara says, "Ihachi, if you can't plant there, afilu pachas mikan nami, then even if it's less than that deep, you still can't plant there. If it's less than that height, you still can't plant there. So why are we saying that it's only that size? The Gemara says, Hani negani da'ara mikru, shadri da'ara mikru. These are called cracks of the earth. These are called rocks of the earth, which means, what the Gemara means to say is that there's certain imperfections that you have to accept. You're not going to get perfect soil, in a whole field like that. There's going to be rocks and there's going to be things. Just have to accept that. That's part of life, and that's part of the sale. That's it's just what it is.
The article says that according to two respectable opinions, a base core could be 4 acres or 7.5 acres. So
Uh-huh.
when you start to figure this out, these are substantial amounts of land that have to have this imperfection.
Uh-huh.
I figured out it was like 60 feet by 60 feet.
60 feet.
I got there because a cov,
An acre is like 34,000 square feet.
An acre is 34,000,
Acres 40,000.
40,000 square feet,
43, sorry.
43,000 square
Builders
feet.
acres.
right? So times it times 4, you get about 175. And a cov is 2 point, a cov is 1/45 of that. And 1/45 of that is, I don't know, it was something like 3,600 feet or something, square feet.
Uh-huh. So you're saying that this, oh, okay, this is going to be relevant in the next Gemara, but you're saying that the size of the ditch is going to be how big?
Well, I think somewhere, I read that it has to be a minimum, we're talking about either a cov or 4 cov.
Okay, right.
And a cov is 1/45 of a base
Right.
core.
Uh-huh.
So 1/45 of 4 acres is a substantial amount of land.
Right. Okay. That's so we're talking about a significant area that is not going to be able to use. Okay. So the Gemara says, Hachamai. What about Payas? So what happened was we had 2 Mishnayos here. We had a Mishnah in Erechin, which was discussing someone that consecrates land. Now he's trying to redeem it. The question is, how does he measure it for the redemption? And then we had the Mishnah over here in Baba Basra where he's selling land and it's not being sold. It's not part of the sale. The person has to get a larger area because those rocks don't count. So what are we talking about over here when there are cracks in the land? Is it filled with water or is it not filled with water? Amar of Papa says, over here it doesn't need to be filled with water. Because it doesn't, that's not the point. The point is that you wanted a certain type of land that you can plow. It doesn't have to do with the water. My time, what would the reason be that if it's not filled with water, it's still not part of the measurement of the sale? Because he doesn't want to have to invest in something, and it turns out that it's 2 or 3 different properties. Yeah, because they can't really plow it together because of these ditches, things that are in it. This is like the kids don't what they say they get a cookie. They don't want the broken pieces. They want the full. But for adults, they want a piece of land, right? That's what the Holy Muslims say. The kids' things are comparable to adults. When a kid's boat has a toy boat in the bathtub when it sinks, that's as difficult as if there's an adult whose boat sunk.
Rabbi, isn't it because the seller has to replace that amount of land that's no good with other lands? So when he's buying his acreage in one spot, now he ends up with another spot somewhere else and another spot somewhere else. That's what he really doesn't like. He says, I wanted just one plot of land. Now I've got to go here. Then I got to
No,
move.
that's not what I
property.
understood.
No,
I didn't understand it like that. I understood that
That's what.
That
That's
he doesn't want.
but it's still.
He doesn't want to have to drop down to be able to get to his other property.
According to the
13.
English, that's what I'm reading. According to the
13.
English, he says that even if these are cultivated, hold on, one who buys a base crop land expects to receive a base crop land
Right.
that he can plow. If part of the area receives is located in deep clefts, even
Right.
because the land is nevertheless split into different levels. Such land is much more difficult since he must move his equipment from one level to another.
Right.
So you're saying it's in the
It's all in
same
the
place?
same place,
Yeah.
but it's at different heights.
But I thought
Calculate.
they're obligated to replace that amount of land that's not good with other land
Right.
that's coming from another
No,
suburb.
us, that's,
think it's
Dr.
just
Stein's bringing up
I
a
think it's
good
just
point, but
expanding.
the way the Rishonim want to do this is that he's not selling him already marked off field. Because if he's selling him a marked off field, then that's going to be a sale no matter what. So I'm selling it from this border to this border. What's really happening is he has a much larger field. That's a huge field. He's saying, I'm selling you this amount of the field. Okay, so now when he's selling him this amount, does this part go into that amount or not? So he's going to end up with it extending to the sides longer because he has in the middle, he has these cracks that aren't counted.
Well, then he has no problem because he's just going to go around the cracks.
Yeah.
And finish.
Right. So these cracks aren't counted as part of the set. Yeah, one of the Rishonim says that in this. Okay.
You were the farmer.
Gemara has a problem with this though. Maskefla Ravina. Ravina has a question. Sounds like he's asking directly to Rav Papa. His question is, "Vadumya d'Slaim Ktani." But 1 second, the way you learned the Mishnah with when he consecrates it, was he said it has to be not plowable or not plantable because it's comparable to the rocks. You said it was filled with water. Now we have the same Mishnah by us, and you're telling me that it's not filled with water. But what happened to that comparison to the rocks that you said before? So it says, "Vadim d'Islam ktani, maslam d'labnei and afhani nami d'labnei It has to be that the cracks in the earth are also not plantable. That's what you did with the other Mishnahs. You should do with this Mishnah. It says, "Kitani dami d'Islam apachis mikan." It gives an interesting answer. What we meant to say is exactly the opposite. That if it's less than 10 tfachim high or 10 tfachim deep, it is considered part of the sale. Over there, it's going to be part of the sale, even if it's not plantable, even if it's filled with water, because that's already not a significant difference in area. So on the pachis mikan, when it's considered part of the sale, it could still be not plantable. It could be a rock or it could be filled with water. When it's not part of the sale, it's not part of the sale even when it's not filled with water. When it is part of the sale, it's part of the sale even when it is filled with water, depending on how deep it is.
Now we don't go by the depth or not. We go by the depth.
By the depth, yeah. So that makes it into a different area. And now the Gemara is going to discuss when we said that if it's a different, that if the height is not 10 tfachim, it is part of the sale. So the Gemara says, "Pachis mikanim danu." Okay, they take that out. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Trashim sha'amru." How do they translate trashim? Rocks. Rocks that they said that are considered sold. That's Basra Daf, and that's only if it's up to 4 kav. 4 kav in a base core. How many kav are in a base core? So there's 6.
2.2%.
Six.
145th. It's 4 cow.
That one's no, 1 second. There's 6 kav in a saw, and this is 30 saw.
Six cow would be 1/5. And then 5 times 6 would be 30. I don't know. Here it just says 4 cows is 45th of a base core, 2.2%.
No.
I thought it was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, but how did we get a 1/45th?
He mentioned it earlier.
After 6
So it's
kav,
4 of a base core.
So 1 second. Let me do the math. Let's see. If I have 4 kav, not 4 kav. If I have, oops. If I have 6 times 30 is 180. So I have 180 kav. Now I have to divide that by 4 because I'm going to allow 1/4.
That's 40.
That's 45. So that's the 45 divided by 4. Divided by 4 is going to be 45. Okay. That's you're saying 1/45. 1/45. Okay. That would be 90. Okay. So, what the way it works out like this, I'll show you in a second. That gets interesting. Amar Avuka bar Chama avushim evlan b'chameshes kaven. Let me do one more line and then we'll discuss this. Here, what's going on? There's a field here that has a flaw in it. It has this
Excuse me, for those of us from the Bronx, a floor or floor? FLAW or FLOOR?
AW.
Is that?
I had to clarify for Dr. Stein, a flaw.
Not a floor.
Does the floor have a hole in it?
That's the flaw.
Yeah.
It has a hole in it. So okay. What's happening here is that it can't, when it's saying that you can have cracks in the field, I can't have, and how much cracks are allowed to be in the field? Up to four kav in the base core. He says, yeah, but you can't have all of those kav all in one spot. We're saying that it can have spread out over, it's allowed to be this. So how spread out could it be? How spread out does it need to be? So he says it needs to be spread into 5 kav. Well, that's pretty contained, right? That's not, as long as it's not in 4 kav. The 4 kav can't be in 4 kav. It has to be spread into 5. Rabbi Yochanan says no. It needs to be spread out into the majority of the field. Now, what am I dealing with here? I'm dealing with 30 sa, right? So majority would be not 15, but 16 sa, a little over half. So I would need to have 51, right? So I need to have the 4 kav spread out over 16 sa. Now, if every 16 sa is going to have 1 kav in that area. So now what's the ratio to 16 sa? No, because it's sa and kav. So a kav, so every sa is 140, is 6. Every sa is 6. If I have 16 sa, so that would be 36. That would be 96 kav. 96 kav. In the 96 kav, I can have 4. Yeah, I can have 4. What's 96 divided by 4? 24. So it would be 1/24. Yeah. It would come out to be 1/24. So every
124 bigger than 145.
yeah, because that was in the whole area that you were saying when we said the 1/45th, that was in the all 30 sa. Now we're saying that it has to be spread out in the 16 sa, not in the 30 sa. To be spread out, so it's going to be 1/25th of those 16 sa could be flawed. Yeah, 1/24. Okay. Okay. How does the Rashbam put it? He says that it's a
Because that 1/24 is the sub is what covers, but that's not 1/24 56.
No.
16, so.
Right. So now, right. 1/24 of the 16 saw could be flawed, which is going to be 4 kavan. 16 saw would be 96. So, Boy Reb Chia Baraba is the one that said this over in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Now Reb Chia Baraba, he's a famous student of Rabbi Yochanan. He asks this question. He says, Ruban b'miyutan beruba mahu. You ready? Let's say the majority of these 16 saw, I'm sorry, the minority of these 16 saw has the majority of these defects, but the majority of the 15 saw doesn't has the majority of the saw of the area has the minority of the defects, but the minority of the area has the majority of the defects. Now it's in other words, it's not that every saw of the 16 saw has 1/4 of a kav. That would be perfect. If every saw of the 16 saw has 1/4 of a kav, then that would be exactly proportioned 1/4 of a kav per the 16 saw, right? Be 4 times 4, the 4 times quarters would be 16, right? There'd be 16 quarters there. Yeah, 16 quarters in 4. So that would work out perfectly. So he's asking, let's say it doesn't work out perfectly like that. Let's say in 7 saw, you have 9 quarters. Oh, sorry. More than 8, right? And in 9 saw, you have 7 quarters. And we're talking about 16 saw here, so it's 9 plus 7. All right, let's say we're doing minority and majority. So it's the 7 has the 9, has the bigger defect, and the 9 has the 7, has the smaller defect. Did Rabbi Yochanan mean that as well? The Gemara says, well, take it. Let's leave that as a question. Okay. Yeah. Which means that what's going to happen in a sale? Because that's what we're talking about, a sale. Well, how's that going to work? Boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah has a question. Classic questions here. Kishir, let's say it's going in a circle. So it's very difficult to plow in an area like this because the defects are spread around in this area in a circle. Or kashura, or it's going across the entire field now, which is fine to plow going one way. The problem is when you plow a field, they plow it both ways. They crisscross. They plow it this way and then they plow it that way. So they can't really plow it in the horizontal because of this. Or let's say it's Tadinen Mahu. Tadinen is like the horns of a type of ox that it's coming out, two defects just coming out, which also block the way, block the plowing of it. Or Akalasin Mahu, let's say it's a zigzag. You see the pictures of this in the Rashbam. Yeah. It's interesting. He actually writes kazeh like this. I wonder if that's the Rashbam saying this. No, but I wonder if these pictures are really the Rashbam, or if over the ages someone.
You're the only one who writes in the Gemara?
Yeah, but now.
No, I don't know like how the printing was back then to copy it into this. You know, they had to have these fonts and everything was like formatted exactly. Okay. Take all of this. We have a take. We don't know the answer to that. Tana was taught in a brayse, okay, if it was an independent rock, then it's not counted together with the sale. Now, I'm not sure why it's two cases here. And if it was next to the border, even if it's very small, it's not counted with it. I'm not sure what's the first one. The first one is not next to the border. The first statement here.
It says on the outskirts.
But the next one is also on the outskirts of the field.
But it said, what?
What is it? Let me see over here. I have it over here.
Oh,
Outside
adjacent
of the
to the
field.
field's
That rock is
boundary.
adjacent to it. It's number 6.
If there was a rock standing by itself alongside the field's boundary, even if it's minuscule, it's not measured with it. And if the rock was within the perimeter of the field, but it was adjacent to the field's boundary, even if it's minuscule, it's not measured with it. So if it's outside the field, then of course it's not measured with it. Why does he have to tell me that? 6, outside the boundary, but abutting it. Okay. And what's it adjacent? In this case, the rock is also alongside the boundary of the field, but within it.
Within it. We should have been able to learn that from the other day when the guy gives the
I don't know.
field that's along the perimeter, but in his field to the people to pass through. All right? And then that automatically is okay. So we could have learned that.
Yeah, what he's saying over here is like this. So when someone wants to include in your sale some defects, some flaws, so he can't have it right at the edge of it. You have to start it with the clean field, the proper field, and then in the middle there's going to be some flaws. But you can't just start off the whole thing with a messed up piece of property and say, okay, that gets included because that's allowed to be part of it. That's not how it works. It has to be start off proper, and then somewhere in the middle you'll have the defect. Okay. Boy Rav Papa, so based on this price, Rav Papa has a question. Mufsak offer bintayimau. Let's say there's a little bit of dirt between this defect field and the border. So it's already included. Well, what's going to be the din over there? Now, how much dirt is he talking about? Less than 3 tfachim, I guess. Yeah, Rashbam says. Is that counted?
The problem is the separation.
Separation. This less than 3 tfachim is a separation between the border and the defect. Is that considered already part of the field? So teku. We don't have an answer to that. Ravashi has a question. The way the Rashbam learns this is that if the defect has a separation between it and the border, let's say that separation is not a real good separation because it has a rock in it, but there's underneath the rock is dirt, or maybe on top of the rock is dirt. So it's like a semi defect. Maybe we'll say that that it's considered a defect all the way to the border, or maybe not. So that also we say teiko. We leave that as a question.
Why can't we learn that from Ksitzis, where the distance of the knaf and then the person added a piece of material that doesn't count, for the corner thing.
I think that has to do with tasav and also it has to be
Yeah.
made beforehand and not
Yeah,
after.
well, here you're making a deal. All right, got tried. You know what's interesting? If you buy a slab of marble or quartzite or anything for a kitchen countertop, all right, usually one side of it is rough. It's just when they cut. But they charge you for the slab, even though you know that's going to be cut out into whatever thing you want. So nowadays you end up paying for this extra thing you know you can't use no matter what.
You probably get a cheaper price because you're getting the whole slab instead of.
No, that's how you have to buy it.
Yeah.
Buy the slab and then they fabricate it for what you want. But there's always one piece you can't even use.
Same thing happened with the tiles. You buy a certain amount of tiles, there's some people you can throw away.
Okay. New Mishnah. Mishnah says like this. Base Korafa, we're gonna need to learn the Gemara to understand the end of the Mishnah, but we'll go through it. Base Korafa ani Meichalach, Mida Bechevel. If someone says, I'm selling you a base Korafa measured with a string. That's part of what he says. He says that it's measured out. So Pichas Kolsho, if there's a drop less, it's not really what he said, then you knock it. Then you have to take off from the price. Yeah. If Heiser Kolsho, if there's a little bit extra than what it was measured, then Yachzer, he has to give back. He has to give back. What does he give back? We'll see in a second. Vim Amar, but if he says Hein Chaser Hein Yater, if he says approximately, more or less, right? Then I feel a pichas reiva lasa, I heiser reiva lasa igiyai. Even if when it says reiva, it's referring to a reiva kav, yeah. Reiva kav, which is every sa, this would be a quarter of a sixth. A quarter of a sixth, which is 1/24th. 1/24th. So even if it's less 1/24th or it's more than 1/24th, then it's considered a good sale because he added that in. He said, yeah, approximately. So that makes it that it could be 1/24th off. Yosemikan, if it's more than that, then Yasa Cheshbon. Then he has to work it out to see how much more it is. And then what's going to happen is he's going to have to pay for everything or the opposite.
But how would he find out that he has a duty to measure also after he bought?
I'm not sure, but what I understood from this was just that he did measure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the seller's measurement is flawed.
Right. So Mahu Machzerlai, what does he return? Interesting, because like the last perek was all of these sales where someone sold grain and right and how much waste gets put in dirt goes into the grain, what you're allowed to have. And now we're talking about property and what's allowed to be in the property and what's it's right, that's the flow of it. So Imratza Ma'al Machzer, what does he Ma'al Machzer? What does he return? Tim Mice gives him back money because he paid too much. So the seller, or either the seller gives him back money, or the buyer gives more money because he got too much. Imratza Machzer Karka, and if he wants, he can give him back land. So V'lamar Machzer Mice. So why do we say that he gives him back money? It's we're trying to improve the power of the seller. Shemshir besada base tishakaben. Ubegina base chatzikav. Ukediv Rabbi Kiva base reba. Machsele esakarka v'leis reba v'vana machsele. Okay. Ukediv Rabbi Kiva base reba. Machsele esakarka. Talking about if the discrepancy is not big enough to be something significant. So for him to give him back this property that he only has like a little sliver of property, so it would be better for him to give him the money for that. So the seller would rather have money than this little bit of property. Let me see how he's writing it in here.
Would they ever like just go back on a deal? Like, call it off?
That would be enough for karka, which we don't say this in.
That's what I was asking. Because it mentions here both of giving the land, give the money, but so the deal is final.
I think so. And so what happened over here? What we said this difference with Rabbi Akiva. was that there was what's considered a significant amount of property. So 9 kav in the field or in a garden, a half a kav, or according to Rabbi Akiva, a quarter of a kav, then the buyer returns the land and he doesn't have to buy it. Can't compel him to buy it, because then it's already a significant amount for the seller to take back. But if it's less than that, then he can ask for the money.
Doesn't it depend on the location, not just the amount of money? You know, like the old joke with I have 3
Right.
blocks, what's it called, downtown Dallas,
Uh-huh.
you know, at the Jewish name. You know, so, I mean, if he's got 1 block in the
Right.
middle of the city, it's worth a lot more than 1 block in the middle of Okeechobee.
That sounds like a minor amount to undo a deal. If a kav is 2.2%, 1/45th, the quarter of a kav is 55 hundredths of 1%.
Uh-huh.
And to say that you undo a deal because
I
55
don't
less
think
than,
he's not undoing the deal. He's returning the overcharge or the undercharge.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the Mishnah finishes off. Not only does he return the extra kav that he but all of the excess land that was added. In other words, it's once you go over, then you have to pay for everything. But the Gemara is going to fix this.
Still, you know, we make a big deal about being over 16%. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And here we're talking about less than 1%.
Uh-huh.
So
It's interesting.
just a
It's
difference.
not even enough. It's not 1%. What is it? There's no enough. They're saying, so why is it? Why are we being so? Oh, you know why? Because this is not enough. Enough was when the price was off.
It's overcharging.
But this is not the price being off. This is the measurement is off.
Yeah. Well, it
That was-
translates to the same thing.
Yeah, but with that we said even the smallest amount. When it came to other things, even the smallest amount, the sales off, right? When it came to the measurements being off. Okay, let's leave it over here. Sorry, that's what we got. Okay, have a good week, everyone. Shana Tova.
Isn't there no ona by karka, or was I making that up?
No, there's no.